Some people will tell you it takes years for a car to reach legendary status, but I reckon the original version of Audi's TT reached that status almost as soon as it went on sale. And how time flies. I went on the launch of that original car, but that was 15 years ago. And this latest version of the car that's just gone on sale is the third generation. Mind you, it has an awful lot in common with that groundbreaking original. Like the first TT, this new car is based on the same platform as the Volkswagen Golf and the Audi A3, with lots of important bits and pieces shared between the cars. And yes, it does look quite similar to that first generation car, but it's always a challenge to update a new version of any iconic car. So it's perhaps no great surprise that designers of this new TT chose to look backwards as well as forwards. Among the new features are these grooves that run in a V across the bonnet, this much larger grille and the flat headlights. But at the same time, there are plenty of pieces that deliberately echo that iconic original car. Just look at the way this broad wheel arch cuts into the line of the bonnet, this strong shoulder line that runs the entire length of the car, and this circular fuel filler cap that's surrounded by screw heads. All these are inspired by the design of that original vehicle. I first drove the original TT in Tuscany, but I'll be on some very different, although equally spectacular hills in this new car, because Audi's chosen to launch it in Scotland. To find out just how good this thing is, we're going to take it on a really long drive, all the way back to England in fact. And in that time, we're guaranteed to find out if this really is the everyday sports car that its makers claim. The big question is, which way to go? I mean, I could just drive down the motorway, but where's the fun in that? After all, this country's home to some of Britain's greatest driving roads, so I'll certainly be finding my way to some of them. But before then, I have a very personal ambition I want to fulfill. You see, the TT isn't the only one with a healthy respect for its predecessors, and while I'm in Scotland, I want to have a look into some of my own family history. You see, my dad's family hail from in and around Dundee, so that is my first destination. I've never actually lived in Scotland, so I'm always pleasantly surprised how soon it is that I feel totally at home in the country. I don't know if it's the scenery, the accents or the architecture, but instantly I feel at home. And it's very similar how I'm finding the TT actually. I've never sat in this version of the TT until this morning, literally just a few minutes ago, and already I feel totally at home. Just the simple things are done so well. You know, I'm a lanky so-and-so, but even though this is a sporting coupe, I've got loads of head and leg room, the drive position is fantastic, and I get a really good view front and rear, so it's really easy to get in this car and do these miles we've got ahead of us. Perhaps what's most amazing is that although this cabin is really revolutionary, I still feel really quickly at home in here. The dashboard is all digital. You know, I can choose between the sat-nav and the dials and displaying my phone details, but I'm finding it all very, very easy to use. And I love the sparse interior. I love the way they've amalgamated the controls to the vents into the vents themselves. So all the aircon controls are hidden in the vents. I think it gives the interior a really clean look and feel. So here we are, safely arrived at our first destination. This is Dundee Law, the highest spot in the city. And it isn't just a magnificent view. This is the stage in which my whole family's history has been played out. Over there you can see the famous Tay rail bridge. At the far end is the village where my father was brought up. Below me here in the city is the school he went to and the office that his father worked in. And over in the eastern end of the city is the suburb of Broughty Ferry, where my great-grandfather lived. And he's the man in whose footsteps I've come to tread. He also worked in Dundee for a firm called the Northern Assurance Company. And here I have a copy of a newspaper article from 1896. So what I'm going to do is plumb Commercial Street, which is where this office was, into the Audi sat-nav and see if I can recreate this actual picture.
C. Oh, the routes are being calculated.
This is where you really appreciate having the sat-nav screen right there in the dashboard. It means you don't have to take your eyes off the road for too long to work out exactly where it is you're going. So I can be confident we're going to find our way to Commercial Street very quickly and very easily. That's quite amazing. I think this is almost the exact spot that this drawing was made from. It's quite as amazing to think I'm here 120 years after my great-grandfather. He probably never had a car, let alone one with sat-nav. But it's amazing to think that this is a view that he would still recognise today. And that's really remarkable in a city that's changed as much as Dundee has. Still, one of the things that modern life has brought is the curse of the traffic warden. So before I get a ticket, I better move on. Now that we've left Dundee behind, it's time to begin the long journey south in earnest. But there's one more place I want to visit on the way. It's not directly connected with my family as such, but it does have an intimate connection with my family's name. People of my age tend to associate the name of Pringle with just one thing: knitwear. So we're heading for the borders town of Hawick, which is where Robert Pringle, who's no relation as far as I know, founded the world famous company Pringle of Scotland almost exactly 200 years ago. Although the firm's factory in the town closed down in 2000, Pringle still has a presence here. So if you'll forgive me, I'm off for a spot of retail therapy. One of the things they don't go on about too much is the Audi is actually a surprisingly practical car. And one of the most important things about Hawick is it's the gateway to the Scottish borders, and that's home to some of the best driving roads in Britain. Just the place to put the TT to the test. Even Audi will tell you that the previous two generations of the TT haven't exactly been out-and-out drivers' cars, but this third generation is something very, very different. It's shorter, narrower and lighter than the previous generation, and when you combine that with its more powerful engine, that makes for a genuinely quick car. We're in the diesel model, which actually is the least powerful in the range with just 180 odd horsepower. But far more important is the 280 pound-feet of torque you get, and that's from below 2,000 revs. That means across country this car responds phenomenally quickly, so you feel far quicker than its 0 to 60 time of 7 seconds suggests. And the best bit is how it feels when you get to those bends. Thanks to that low weight, it feels incredibly nimble, really agile, just like a sports car should. I suppose the crucial question is this as good as a Porsche Cayman? And no, it's not quite that good. But the fact we're talking about a TT in the same breath as a Cayman tells you just how good this thing is. As you can probably see through the window, the weather has taken a distinct turn for the worse here in the Borders. But even in these conditions, the TT feels solid, it feels sure-footed. I can attack these roads with real confidence. And that's despite the fact that we're in just a two-wheel drive version. And you can spend a bit more and get a Quattro version with four-wheel drive, but to be honest, there's no real need. This thing is so sure-footed even in these conditions, I'd save your money. The other benefit, of course, of choosing the diesel TT is you get excellent economy. We've done several hundred miles now. We've reached Oxford services on the M40. And despite the fact we haven't been hanging around and this car's pretty heavily laden, we're still averaging the best part of 50 miles to the gallon. How many other sports cars could you do that in? So now that we're fully refueled, we're on the final leg of our journey. But all those things that so impressed me when I first got in the car in Glasgow are still impressive now. The comfortable seats, this good driving position, the excellent visibility all round, they all help make this TT a great GT. Okay, so I'm not going to lie and tell you this is the most comfortable, the quietest car I've ever driven on the motorway, but it's more than good enough. Oh blimey, that was one hell of a drive. After umpteen hours behind the wheel and the best part of 700 miles, I've finally arrived home. And over the course of that journey, I've come to really love this TT. It's everything the previous generations have been, beautifully built, really high quality and utterly distinctive to look at. But where this model is different is it's also a proper sports car. And you know what the best bit is? I started this journey by looking into the history of the Pringle family, but the TT has brought me completely full circle. But what I'm happiest to see now after umpteen hundred miles is my wife and my daughter, the future of the Pringle family.